Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, we did a story yesterday that I want to do a follow up on now because we talked yesterday about the possibility of the tourist tax going through and that the awfulness of this idea. It is, of course, a green idea, and if they can destroy the tourist sector, all the better for them. They do so enjoy destroying whole sectors of the economy. But it did, unfortunately, go through. Now, they were told of the consequences, they were told what would happen. But of course, when all these things that they were told will happen and do happen, they'll be sitting there going, well, nobody told us. But yes, they did. And it will be damaging. It will cause people to stay away. Some people will choose not to come out of principle of not paying a tax. They're not calling it a tax, of course. They're calling it a visitor levy. But make no bones, it is a tax. And some people, will look at it and the extra costs incurred and staying each night over the thing will say, well, times are hard, money's tight, can't really, afford, don't want to waste all that extra money on tax. I'll just stay this side of the border and we'll go to the Lake District. And so all that money is lost to campsites, to bed and breakfast, to hotels, but also in the wider economy. They're not going to bars and clubs and restaurants and things. They're not paying for attractions. And so there's a lot of money going to fall out of the economy. It's all part of the plan, though, isn't it? Well, let's take a look and see what damage will be done. Here goes. So, the SNP will raid the pockets of tourists in the latest tax wheeze as visitors to be charged for visiting Scotland. And I think out of principle, it's just a terrible idea, especially when times are so hard. You need people to come. You need people to want to visit. Stop putting up barriers to them coming. The Scottish Government passed the visitor levy, we'll call it the tourist tax bill, through Holyrood last evening, which will give councils the power to charge tourists for staying overnight in cities and towns. The SNP is now targeting the pockets of tourists as MSPs pass through legislation which allows councils to bring in a tourist tax. We call it here the Visitor Levy Scotland Bill, but it is the tourist tax, passed stage 1 at Holyrood on Tuesday. This is despite protests from critics that it would damage the industry, which brings in millions each year for the economy. And here's the thing, it isn't all in one place. Sure, when you get like the Edinburgh Fringe or something, a load of money goes into Edinburgh. But outside of that, people travel the whole length and breadth of Scotland. I mean, there's whole communities that rely on people coming to Scotland. Think of things like Tyndrum on the A82. I mean, it is just a mecca, if you will, for tourists, and the bikers especially go up there. You've got that. You've got Inverness that relies on it. You've got a load of places. Oban filled with tourists and things like that. There is a lot of beauty. People come for the beauty, for the wildness, for the landscapes. And they don't want that to happen, the Greens. Apparently the Greens don't like people going to Scotland and spending money because it means somebody somewhere might be happy, might make a bit of a profit, might look to expand and grow, may even put a smile on their face. That's the last thing these miserable Marxists want. Anyway, a number of European countries already have similar mechanisms, which tourists charge a sum of money when they stay overnight in beds in some cities. Now, cash-strapped local authorities will receive the power to introduce the punitive charge, which rises for every night a person stays in the region. Well, it's virtually unpoliceable, number one. And secondly, they'll just have to sort of take a few. If anyone pays in cash, they'll obviously not have to pay it. Well, don't just pop that in there, thank you very much. Run it through the till as a drink or something. But if any council bosses choose to go ahead with this, it will be forced to wait 18 months before it can start collecting, to allow businesses time to set up how to collect on its behalf. They haven't got a clue. I mean, none of this has been thought out. How do you do it? How do you police it? Nobody knows. Literally nobody knows. It's a pointless exercise, but one that will make it harder. More bureaucracy, more cost to business. It's almost as though they don't want the economy to grow. They don't want people to make money. They don't want Scotland to thrive. And that is by design, because they absolutely know They've been told in advance what will happen and they've chosen to do it. And when it all goes wrong, they'll put their hands in the air and say, well, who could have foreseen it? Everyone. Anyway, there will be no set fee across the country, which means different councils can charge different rates. And therefore, if you are someone who runs an attraction in one, one region, one county, and or in one council area, should I say, and they have an expensive overnight stay, people will go to the next one down the road. You could lose money because that council choose to charge more than the one next door. Critics believe that this will have a damaging consequence for tourism in Scotland with less money spent on attractions, restaurants and bars. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Everybody knows this. Everybody with half a brain. Unfortunately, SNP voters don't have half a brain and they keep voting SNP members in. And this is what happens. Wholesale destruction of whole sectors of the Scottish economy. Scottish Tory chairman Craig Hoy described it as a bad law, which is aimed at making up for SNP mishandling, as local authorities have been starved for cash. And this, of course, is one of the big problems. They will say, oh yes, we're going to take all this cash and we will push it into resources and tourism and blah, 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 blah. And it won't happen. It'll be paying for Meals on Wheels. It'll be upgrading schools. It'll just go into central council coffers and the attractions will see nothing whatsoever. Again, people used as a cash cow, businesses used as a cash cow to supplement the lack of understanding of an economy from the SNP government. He added that it would have an impact on overall spend as tourists come to Scotland on a fixed budget, but with this tax removing even more money from them, they now won't be spent at restaurants or bars who are already struggling with high taxes and a lack of support from the Scottish government. His party colleague Miles Briggs said Scotland's tourist sector is world class. It is estimated to be worth 4.5 billion to the Scottish economy. That will fall. It directly supports over 250,000 jobs across the country, including rural and island communities. That will fall. If you get a bar that gets a 10% reduction in footfall, that's 10% cut on its profits, it's going to have to fire people. And you're going to say, okay, so you've got a person, you're going to fire this person. It doesn't matter what they're, you're going to fire someone. That's someone who was previously earning and paying tax in, who's now not earning and paying tax in, but is sitting there taking money out of the system. It's a double loss. You're not only losing the input, you're gaining an output. And so the economy gets worse, the black hole in the accounts get worse, everything gets worse, all because dumb, ignorant, stupid people have been voted into office and they are choosing to introduce dumb, stupid laws. We need to have a minimum IQ for voters, I think. Anyway, many tourism businesses have not yet fully recovered from the pandemic and in recent years have had significant additional costs thanks to the SNP Green government. Many fear that this bill, as with the botched and short-term lets legislation, will lead to unintended harm. You are already losing short-term lets, which means fewer people can actually stay in Scotland. That's having a detrimental effect. And now you're going to charge them more for staying. Worse and worse. Everything that's happening seems to be deliberately designed to destroy the tourism industry. And especially when you keep letting the roads fall into disrepair. We started the day on one of them. Why would people try to manoeuvre expensive cars through shitty roads to get to a room that may not even exist by the time they get there because it's been closed because they couldn't get the licensing in time, only to find another room that does there, but they have to charge you even more because of a tourist tax? Why would you bother? It's going to destroy the industry. It's going to put people unemployed. It's going to close down whole swathes of it. And then the whole of rural Scotland will sink into a mire of poverty and degradation. All because these wankers at Holyrood think that they know best. Well, we all know what they know. They know bugger all. Oh, it is there. Public Finance Minister Tom Arthur defended the proposals. How do you defend the indefensible? He said 21 out of 27 EU countries have some kind of visitor levy. Just because they've got it doesn't make it right, and it certainly doesn't make it right in Scotland, where most of your tourism is coming from England. And so you could argue that it's not a tourist tax, it's an anti-English bigot tax. They are commonplace at other locations throughout the world. I strongly believe that a visitor levy or a tourist tax can be a force for good, supporting the visitor economy and bringing benefits to visitors. How do you bring benefits to visitors? By making them poorer. Because that money isn't going to go into the local community. It's going into the council coffers to make up for the shortfall in money from central government, which they don't have the money because they keep wanking it away on shiny brochures. But hey, there you go. You vote for them, you get them. And when the whole of the economy collapses, who are you going to blame? I'll tell you who you're going to blame. You're going to blame the SNP and the Greens, because they are the Marxists who want to destroy the economy. I'm coming up. This is another one of those I told you so moments, because when things do go wrong in a year to 18 months, 2 years down the line, and they're all starting to say, why is nobody coming? Why is the tourism industry in Scotland suffering? Well, you have to look at the reduced number of bed and breakfasts and of hotels. And because there's a reduced number, the prices have gone through the roof. And then on top of that, your tourist tax, and the roads are terrible and the infrastructure is awful. And you look and you think, oh, that's probably why. How did nobody predict this? But we do. We do. We're telling you now, this is what's going to happen, because we are not morons. We are not people with a limited intelligence and an inability to grasp the consequences of our actions. Stop voting for idiots. If you're an SNP supporter and you're about to lose your job because your job relies on the tourist industry, as you pack up for the last day, put your coat on, walk out, go home, look at the wife and say, sorry love, lost my job, I'll go on the dole tomorrow. And then things go wrong and you lose your house and you're sitting there on the streets. Just think, at least we've got glossy brochures as you're shoving them inside your coat to keep warm. And it's your fault. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later.